after a bit of a break, we're kicking off Season 3 of the AusCannaPodcast. I'm your host, Christina McMullen, and I cannot even begin to tell you how excited I am to be back for another season of deep dives, real conversations, and unfiltered insights into the medicinal cannabis industry. This season, I'm upping my game with more expert guests, more behind the scenes, and more on the road episodes. And of course, as part of leveling up, if you, the listener, submit a rapid fire question via AusCannaReviews@gmail.com and it gets picked, I assure you, this season, you'll be getting more than just stickers. Anyways, to start things off, I've got a guest I've been looking forward to chatting with for a while. Joining me today is Brian Bain, an industry veteran with over 20 years in cannabis and 12 years in innovative agriculture. He's the CEO of Mother Labs, where they're doing some incredible work in genetic development. Are you a fan of Miss Kim? That's Mr. Bain's handiwork. So you can see why I was so pumped when he agreed for this little old podcast to be his Australian debut. So grab your favorite cultivar, get comfortable, and let's get into it with some of those rapid fire questions. You ready? We're going to start with some rapid fire questions.
I'm ready to go.
Okay, here we go. Coffee or tea?
Ooh, coffee, 100%.
What is the most inspiring place you've ever visited?
Oh, I think it's Thailand for me. Before legalization came, I used to have a spot. Gentleman owned the resort. It was Mr. Weeds, and we used to go there and smoke joints on the beach. And this is my happy place. So
I was gonna say, Mr. Weeds, it sounds like a great place.
honestly, it was. He was a bartender, and that's where I got my weed in Thailand. And it was great. Went there for many, many years, and it was the spot.
Nice, nice. A skill you're learning right now.
I think entrepreneurship is something that we learn on the fly constantly. I'm learning something every day with the business. I've been doing this for 11 years now, just this business. So, but every day I'm learning something new, and this international space has definitely got a lot of learning lessons. So,
Yeah, absolutely. What's your favorite cultivar to grow?
favorite cultivar to grow? That's a really good question. I've grown many thousands and thousands and thousands of cultivars. I would say for myself, just overall, it's probably one of the cultivars we're releasing in Australia, which is Tangerine Skies. It's just a remarkable cut to grow. It just produces the same size bud from top to bottom. It's super easy to grow. It's got a great yield. It's super, super, super smelly. It smells amazing. And it just does the same thing every single grow, no matter where it's grown. So for me, that's definitely one that over the years I bred that myself too, so that helps. But yeah, I think Tangerine Skies is one.
Little soft spot there when you grow it. You're breed it.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. If you were arrested with no explanation, what would your friends assume you did?
International drug trade, probably selling cannabis globally. I'm sure they look at me like a drug lord at times when really it's a medical market. We're here to help people and release amazing products, but that would 100% be it. Yeah.
First job you ever had?
I worked at Subway.
Yeah?
I was a sandwich artist for about a year and a half, and then I got fired for being a stoner, I think. So yeah, first job Subway.
So that's so funny because one of my really, really, really good friends in high school, his first job was in Subway, and he got fired because, bless his heart, he was selling shrooms out of the drive-through. So you would go through the drive-through and you would get a foot long veggie with extra
Wow.
shrooms.
Wow.
That was
That
like the
is, I'd
code
say
for
that's
like,
brilliant.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
the owner caught on, like the franchisee owner caught on because apparently there was a spike in vegetable sub sales, but the the counts for quantity weren't matching up. You know what I mean? They had
Wow.
an abundance of lettuce when they shouldn't have, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was not that clever when I was that young. That was not where my head was at all. But yeah,
So
good for
funny.
him. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's clever anyway.
Yeah, like looking back on it, I'm like, brilliant, dude. Brilliant. Brilliant.
5 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
A book or podcast that changed your perspective.
Honestly, I think a book that changed my perspective was From Good to Great. This is one that I would highly suggest. I live for two things. One is cannabis and the other is business. And these are my two passions, I would say, in life. And From Good to Great has been a book that's really helped me get outside of my shell as an entrepreneur. And definitely I'm someone that I'm self-taught in a lot of ways and not I don't have an MBA. I'm not someone that got a commerce degree in university. I'm someone that I really legitimately started from the bottom and worked my way up. And From Good to Great is a book that I'd highly suggest just to kind of get your head in the right space and kind of help push forward professional career. And honestly, like every Ed Rosenthal book that's ever come out, I think like a growing book. I'm a horticulturist by trade too. So any horticulture book, I have plant book after plant book after plant book. So just anything to do with plants or cannabis, really.
If you were stranded on a desert island, what's one tool you'd take from your grow setup?
For my grow setup. Wow, that's a good question. For my grow setup, holy cow. Um, I would, if I was honest on an island, I'd probably take a grow tray that goes in the bottom of a bed so I could collect water. I think this is something for me, is something to collect water or to help clean water. You know what I mean? And capture it as well. So I'm thinking a 4x8 grow bed. That's what I'd be bringing.
I gotta be honest, dude, that's fucking brilliant.
And I could cover it, put over my head. I could make it a boat. There's so many different things I could do with this tray.
Like I said, brilliant. I like it a
Thank you.
lot.
Thank
I
you.
like it a
Thank you.
lot. So I have a listener submitted question.
Okay.
Celeste in Coffs Harbour, New South Wales, wants to know if aliens landed tomorrow and asked you to explain cannabis in one sentence, what would you say?
I would ask them when they brought the plant to this planet because I honestly, it's a completely confusing plant to me. I'm a horticulturist by trade, and yeah, I don't even know how to answer that. It's such an obscure plant. I've seen so many different variations of it that it's just like, yeah, it's almost alien in itself. So I think that would be it. Is
You'd
when did they
counter
bring
back.
that plant here? Yeah. This wasn't created here. This was brought
I
from outer
like it.
space. Yeah.
I like it. You'd be like, did you guys lose something? What happened here?
Right? Dude, take it back, please. This is getting
I,
everyone high.
I do like it. Um,
Yeah.
if clouds were edible, what flavor would you want them to be?
Ooh, that's hilarious. Anything strawberry, I think. I'm a big strawberry guy. I like in food anyway, in cannabis probably a different terp profile, but strawberry. That seems delicious.
Last question. What's one piece of advice you once ignored but wished you hadn't?
It's okay. Sorry for the silence here. Um, Slow down. I think as an entrepreneur and growing a cannabis business in Canada, I'm sure everyone's well aware of the industry here domestically. Um, it grew very fast, and there was a lot of hiccups for a lot of producers, and there's a lot of pain points that a lot of people have went through. We've thankfully avoided a lot of those pain points, but still, I think just taking a deep breath and understanding that this takes longer than you think it will and does building a cannabis business, even breeding. We'll go into depth about that, and hopefully on this podcast. But it all takes so much more time than what you originally think. It's not a fast moving plant by any means. So yeah,
It's pretty solid advice for just anything
yeah.
in life. Slow down.
Just take a deep breath. Slow it down. You're not as big of a rush as you think, and the market isn't going to change as fast as you think. And for me, it's just slow it down and take it step by step.
Someone actually said to me a couple of weeks ago, why was I in such a rush to do something? The plant's been around for thousands of years, and this
Exactly.
industry is only just getting started, so don't worry. right? And I
That's
was like, whoa,
weird.
that's some pretty deep, profound stuff that I guess I needed to hear in that moment because I was like, yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, yeah. I honestly, we joke where I thought I'd be today versus where I thought I'd be 5 years ago is a completely different place. But I'm happy at where we've landed and everything we've accomplished. We've had great impact on the industry globally, which is amazing. But it's still not quite where I thought I'd be. But again, just sitting back and recognizing those wins, it's very important because, yeah, you're gonna kind of ground yourself a little bit there and realize that it takes time.
So, Brian, I can admit that because this is a podcast that's kind of been, I guess, cooking in the background, if
Mhm.
you will, for a while, right?
Like it.
So I can admit that, oh man, it was probably almost 2 years ago that I kind of got a little balls deep in the creep, if you will, because I had
Yeah.
stumbled across a flower that led me into looking at your company and your genetics, and it kind of like snowballed from there. And so I kind of knew you were somebody that I wanted to talk to before I even really knew I wanted to do a podcast and where I wanted to go
Wow.
with it. So I'm going to step back for a second because I could like go on and on about you, but I would like you to, low key introduce yourself to the listeners who don't know anything about you.
Okay, well, thank you for that. First of all, it means a lot because honestly, you feel like you're just kind of working in your own world, and it's nice to know we've been seen. But yeah, my name is Brian Bain. I am the CEO, founder of Mother Labs. I'm a horticulturist by trade. I'm someone that's been growing cannabis for 24 years, breeding for about 20. Always kind of been in the trade, always been in agriculture, horticulture, facility design, just very interested in indoor cultivation. I've built one of the largest indoor vertical farms for herbs in Canada. Obviously, we've built a fairly phenomenal business in Canada around cannabis, but just very focused on horticulture. It's my passion, my love. It's kind of what I've done for my entire career, and mine is Subway. And yeah, I have a passion for helping people. This is the other piece, and building community. And I've myself grown up without much community around myself, single child, single parent, no family, no anything, and really kind of building this business and building the businesses I've built has been largely about building community, building with friends and family and creating new family. And so that's something for me. And just, yeah, just a lot love for the plant and, an avid user and consumer of cannabis, both medically and I'd say recreationally for, many, many years. And it's something, I've built my career off of it. And it's been a tool for me. I have ADHD as well. And I've self-medicated from, before psychotropics came around, and yeah, it's always been a part of my life. And yeah, that's a little bit about me, I guess.
I love it. That's very, yeah, it's because I've got such a fan crush that you've just totally downplayed yourself. I love it. I love it so much. So, I'm just kind of want to dive right in with it. The reason why I have such, I guess, mad respect for you is because you have this passion for genetics and you have this passion for breeding. And for me, as a medicinal patient, one of the things that I look at when I'm picking flowers is genetics and leaning into now terpene profiles and figuring out what terpene profiles really work for me. So I guess my very first question for you, like, and it's a question that can open a door and we can go many, many ways with it. But I guess my first question to you was, I know you've got a horticultural background, but what kind of sparked the first decision that you were like, okay, I'm going to take this cannabis plant and I'm going to start breeding it and coming up with my own cultivars for like you're saying, for medicinal patients, for different people. Like what kickball started that all off?
It being very hard to acquire good seed. This is something like when I first started growing, I was on ICMag and all these old forums, and I've been growing for many years and trying to use whatever resources were around that many of the people that are in the industry now, utilize as well. And I bought all my seed from seed banks and from auctions and from, all around the world. And I don't know how many times I got an RCMP letter in the mail saying we've confiscated your seed, and how many times, I've spent tons of money and it not come through or us not get genetics. And so that was honestly just, what really started it for me breeding was saying, okay, I have a hard time acquiring genetics. The products that I'm acquiring are not necessarily products that I desire or want. And so I started breeding. And the first plant I ever bred was a white widow plant, like an old school white widow plant. And it started I guess what is today Mother Labs really many, many, many years ago. And just the creativity that goes into it, and just really being able to see the expressions of the plant come out, and being able to help steer that with breeding is such a cool thing to see and such a cool thing to experience. And so for me, just kind of, I've always wanted to be a part of that. And it really stemmed from me not being able to get seeds. So, it's from a need, but also a passion and a creative, I don't know, something burning inside of me.
I love it because so many things really are like born out of necessity,
Totally.
right? Like you were looking for better plants and you were like, you know what? I can do this better,
And
right?
no bullshit, my seeds kept getting stopped by the government. And so I was at the point early on in cannabis where it was like, it was just getting picked up and picked up and picked up, and there was nothing I could do. So again, it was out of necessity fully, and it kind of blossomed into something that obviously it's a pretty cool thing to be a part of today.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, I mean, I have very limited experience in growing my own plants, and I joke about it all the time that, like, I was that person that literally like started in the red solo cup and then moved it outside and like watered it with fish tank water and was like,
Yeah.
you'll do fine, girl. Again, and I watched it. I knew when it needed to be hard, like I can produce, right? But uh, beyond watching for some, again, color changing in the trichomes, things like that, I'm I can own it. I don't know what the hell I was doing or what I was looking for. It was just crapshoot,
Mhm.
to be honest. So I'm curious for you, like when you start your first, I don't know, mother plant, what are you looking for to like get it going? Like, are there certain things that you're like, oh, I'm more drawn to, purple leaves because they're super trendy now, or is there certain things that you
Yeah.
consistently look for, I guess?
Totally. Yeah, they're absolutely. And how much time do we have? Because really, at the end of the day, this is a very diverse plant. And I think at the end of the day, we are a company that I am looking for multiple need states, you will say. So one need state would be the medical market, unique terpenes, profiles, cannabinoids. The other is, the commercial. How easy is it to commercially cultivate? Because again, we are, licensing genetics. We're growing them ourselves. We need to consistently produce these products. So how does it fit into commercial setting? And then it just again on the agronomy side, do pests love it? Is it a pest prone plant? Is it a disease prone plant? Is it, have issues in a multitude of different areas? That's one big section for sure. But again, we go through a 72-week breeding cycle, so it all starts. So how do I select a genetic? Really, it starts at a seed, and this can go back years and years and years. And I can start with Flawless Victories, a cultivar that I believe is in Australia now, and this is
Yep.
one that was created. I pollinated that plant 5 years ago. So what we did in that example is found two phenomenal plants. We reversed one. We created brand new genetic, new seed. When we select the final plant that comes out of that, the false victory cut that we ended up selecting, we ended up popping 45 seeds right off the bat. This is years ago. And when I go through, we start them in tissue culture. So one of my first, I guess, grading processes is, does it work in TC or not? And if it doesn't work in tissue culture for us, it's not a commercially viable plant. So some cultivars work, others do not. So does it grow well? Is it easy to replicate? Yes or no? It makes it
Not
or doesn't.
not
Yeah,
to
go
cut
ahead.
you off, but just for listeners who wouldn't know, what is a tissue culture?
Tissue culture is basically we're taking a plant back to a meristematic level, which means a very, very small portion of the plant. It's the most apical dominant basically cell you can find on the planet. It's the freshest growth. We take that and we put it on an agar solution and put it in a jar and we keep it in the lab. So it allows us to have clean starting material all the time. It allows us to remediate product, get rid of hot latent viroid, clean up products. It's how we store our genetics. It's how we preserve our genetics. It's how we start our seed. It's really just it's kind of the lab portion of our business. Um, so yeah, but the selection process, it starts there and then it moves into the mother stage. So we take a plant to a larger form and basically grade it at that point. Then we flower it out and we do the same thing. We have a multiple stage grading process. And then the very last few plants that make it, it's about 1% of the genetics, the seed that I start actually make it to commercialization. We end up choosing based off of effects. So this is something that we utilize our entire team, and we smoke the product a lot and we grade it. And we have a multiple pages of information that we collect, whether it's medical effects, red eye, pasties, pros and cons, effects, ups and downs, terpene profiles, everything. We want to know it all. And then we do a final grading after we've grown it two more times. So what we end up doing is that 72-week, process for us is it's a multi-year process where we're grading this product from beginning to end in every stage of the process because A, we want a product that, the consumers love, but B, we want a product that can commercially grow and is viable and will be around for many, many years to come. So long-winded answer, but it's quite a complicated process to select genetics. So
It's not a long, that's that you needed all that information though, right? Like I think that some people have a misconception that because we here are getting new flowers all the time, this, that, but like I said, I do think there's a misconception here that new genetics are just constantly coming out, and they're not constantly coming out. It, like what you're saying, it's many, many years to get you to that final plant that is commercially viable, whether it is for a medical market or for a recreational market. It takes years to get there. Do you notice there's a
100%. Yeah.
I was gonna say,
Sorry, go
do you
ahead.
notice there's a big difference between what the recreational side wants versus what the medical side wants?
Not yet. I will say it is mostly a rec market for the most part, from what I see. The majority of the consumers that are in this is how it started in Canada and Germany and Australia and many different countries. I'd say the medical market's going to grow and evolve into more unique cannabinoids and unique terpene profiles that are more specifically targeted to medical ailments or any other issues that are going on medically. But right now I can't legally even say that. So for us, everything that we're doing is based for the rec market. But yeah, I'd say the medical market will eventually expand and grow once the market picks up a little bit, and I think the consumer realizes that there are major nuances between products and what's within the plant, and that has a major effect on the end result and the end effect essentially. So yeah.
I think a lot of the subtle nuances come from your terpene profiles, right? I mean, there are other things that go into it, but I do think, and I'm just thinking back now to a conversation that you and I had a while back on Instagram about terpinolene and ocimene, and how like for some reason when they meet together for both you and I, it's like this happy, harmonious, perfect
Absolutely.
like marriage. It's like, oh God, where have you guys been your whole life? But that's not a very popular combination when you start looking at other flowers. So
No, it's not. I think need state is very, very important. I think there's different need states throughout the day for a medical user, depending on what you're doing, where you're at, what's on your plate. I think there's a place and a time for a lot of different cultivars. It's not a one size fits all. So I would say that terpinolene, ocimene, the transcaryophyllene, you have all these different terpenes that create more of an uplifting effect. For me, that's what I, as an entrepreneur and as a business owner and as a dad and all these other things, I'm searching for a product that is not bringing me down. I have no issue sleeping. At the end of the day, I go to bed just fine. For me, I need to stay active and be alert, but also have, a bit of that medicinal effect helping bring me down a little bit and center my mind. And for me that, and that's tangerine skies in a nuts in a nutshell. That's exactly the top three terpenes. And for me, this is why I brought this cultivar to market, because it truly has a phenomenal effect. But you'll see that we really focus on a diverse range of terpene profiles because there are so many different need states, and that's something you have to be aware of as a breeder. That I may like something, but I've seen over and over again that I have 5 or 6 or 7 staff or friends that really love something else that I'm not into at all. So you have to have an open mind and understand that there are different needs out there and different desires, and we have to have them all. So
I like it I like it. I like the fact that you're so conscious about, what works for you doesn't work for everybody else, because there are definitely people that bring things to market and they're more, I guess, more niche, right? There's not a lot of variety underneath their brand. And I'm not hating on those brands at all, but I sometimes I look at them and I'm like, man, what you have is great, but I wish you could diversify just a touch more.
This is where a lot of breeders will run into going with one or two main cultivars because of potency or because of public perception or hype, and they'll breed with those cultivars over and over and over again. Wedding cake is an amazing example. It's in freaking everything. And so wedding cake is a potency, it's got a morphology effect. So the plant grows, in a certain way, but it also has this potency effect where it was used in everything. We started with a base breeding stock of 1,000 genetics. So we did years of pheno hunting and years of development, and I had genetics that we brought in early days. Black Cherry Punch is one that's been around and probably one of the most prolific cultivars in the Canadian market. Um, that cultivar wasn't bred by us, but it was pheno hunted by us, discovered by myself actually in my house. This was years long ago. We brought it in, and this is a very unique plant. It was the first farnesene plant, really, that kind of got brought to market. Not for everyone, but again, there's a need state for that. It's fairly unique. Yeah, and again, it's just really finding just a range of products that suit a range of different consumers and medical patients. And without doing that, you get kind of put in a box, and we never want to be put in a box. I'm looking for the most unique terpene profiles I can find. I'm looking for the most unique profiles, different effects. If it's the same as usual, I'm probably passing on it. So for us too, that's maybe where my personality comes in is I'm not really wanting the ordinary. As much as you can only go so far with the plant, but still we want to be as different as you can, and we really focus on exclusivity as well. So for us, not mass producing the same genetic over and over and over again. That is not the name of our game. We are really here to produce quality, unique products. And so if I have my catalog is all made of the same products or similar products, it does me no good. It does the patient no good and the consumer. So
Um, when you're talking to doctors, right? How do you actually talk to doctors? Because I mean, again, Canada is very different than how things work here in Australia. But in Canada, do you talk to doctors? Do you have conversations with them about like the importance of genetics and how to achieve certain medicinal effects?
I would love to say yes, and I have so many meetings, and it's so many doctors are interested in what's going on, but sadly, no, I don't think I've had one. I have been to medical conferences though, and I really make a point of going to these conferences to, we have to understand the science. So really understanding what medical patients truly need, and often it's not extreme high potency. This is a bit of a myth. Is you get to a certain potency of THC, and all of a sudden pain increases, different things increase, it doesn't help doing the opposite. So for us, I just like to really understand that. And again, that comes back to having a range of products, not just all 30 percenters. It's like, can we do this? Yes, that's not the case. I don't want to do this. We need to have a range of products. And so, I listen and I try to learn as much as possible, but not a lot of conversations going on now.
No, that makes me sad because I do feel like there's such a place. I mean, even if you are somebody that can't see any medical value in
Mhm.
the plant at all, and you're just staunch against that. One of the things that I run into constantly when I talk to people is that they tell me that it's improved their quality of life. And
Mhm.
so I just find it really bizarre to me that doctors wouldn't want to have a conversation with you when an underlying theme is improving the quality of life.
Yeah, I think probably, the right doctor, they most likely would love to have a conversation and dive in. There's very few that I found that are focusing on, cannabis and THC and CBD and other cannabinoids in Canada. So for me, it's more of a, the way the medical market was developed here, it was kind of forced on doctors a little bit, and they were forced to prescribe. And there's almost a little bit of animosity, I would say. And I'm not speaking for everyone by any means, but you can definitely tell in the early days of legalization, whether it was medically or even rec, the stigma is real. It still exists. So maybe that's part of it where it just takes a little bit of time. We're still fairly early in, this whole world of cannabis. So I definitely see this becoming, a greater topic of discussion over the years. But right now, it is predominantly a rec market in Canada. The medical market in Canada is fairly underground, and that's kind of maybe the difference from Canada, from Germany, Australia, these other markets is, the medical market is the focus, and it's learned from Canada and learned from other markets that, have done this and it's improved it in certain ways, and but it's professional. It's the medical market in Canada is a little bit more. Little looser and a little bit more of the legacy side of things, which is phenomenal because there's a whole culture there and it's keeping that culture alive. But again, yeah, it's not the same as it is in Australia, but we find ourselves speaking more to pharmacists than doctors. So at least, there is someone in the medical community that is, reaching out and really excited to talk. So
I do think one of the huge areas of opportunity for Australia is embracing more of the legacy market, more of that green market,
mhm.
right? I do think that that's a huge opportunity for us. But what's something that you think Canada did really, really well in their medical model that perhaps is an area of opportunity over here?
The medical model. Yeah, it's tough. I had a medical prescription myself. I think just initiating MMAR and the medical market beyond that was a really sound move. It really helped normalize the plant and normalize it as medicine and normalize it as, something that, day to day, the average person can utilize and not just be a stoner, not just be a pothead. There's people that can use it for real reasons that have a benefit. So for me, it's the early days of the medical market. I think just initiating that has been really why we're here talking today. So I'm just glad that those initial steps were taken.
I think one of the most um, amazing things that I experienced in Canada at the very beginning of the medical market was there was a rally in Vancouver, and I worked in downtown. I worked at the Red Robin that was on Robson and Thurlow that I believe is still there. And long story short, with it, I'm walking to work. And I get caught up in this rally that is over by where, if you're familiar with Vancouver at all, it's where, what was it that burnt down there? Was it Blunt Brothers that burnt down or Amsterdam Cafe? One of the cafes
Yeah.
burnt down, right? But this was when the cafe was still there. And there's like this little park that's kind of out in front of it. Anyways, I was down there obviously getting high, smoking pot before I went to work. But point is I'm hanging out and all of a sudden this rally, like these people like show up and they've got these signs and everything. And I'm like, what's going on? And I realize these people are here because they're telling the Canadian government they're happy that they've got medical, but the medical is shit compared to what they can get. And they're like, yo, you guys need to like up the bar here so it's competitive with what I can get over here. Otherwise, I'm not buying your medical stuff. Here I am at 23 thinking, fuck yeah, man. I'm like, fight the
Yeah.
power. You tell them that they need to bring the that quality level up. And I think that, again, that's 20 years ago now almost. I feel like we've come so far with where
Absolutely.
we're going, but yet we have so far to go.
Yeah, the medical market in Canada is one that I'm unsure of its future per se. Like obviously there's, they've fought for a lot, but from what you see licenses, going up and down in terms of how many are being issued and, are people transitioning from the medical market to the rec market just because of ease, accessibility. There's definitely all these different things going on, but it's really why we're here today. And again, you have to have respect for it. And you have to have respect for the OGs. And you growing up in BC is, I think, a bit of a difference from me growing up in Saskatchewan, where it was very quiet here. It was it was very quiet. This is something until I was, in my 20s that, again, there was really no talk about it. It was a very underground practice. It was really not a very conservative, obviously, place. And for us, we really didn't have the culture, the support there. So a lot of it was started, with, heavy presence in BC and a lot of work that was done from these medical patients to bring the markets where it is today. And I think that's probably why we have the medical market in Australia and Germany and all these other markets coming online as well, is the rallies that these people did and the voices that they had and how loud they actually were. It was instrumental.
It's crazy to me when I think back to what Vancouver was like then in, like
Yeah.
2002, 2003, 2000. Like it was crazy because I mean, I was somebody that was coming from Texas and Mexican dirt, like brickweed. And thinking back on my teenage years, I'm thinking about how great like Mexican dirt was and how much I
Yeah.
loved it. And I was like, ah, and then getting to Vancouver and being like, oh my God, is this even the same plant? Like, what are we even talking about here? And it was so, I, I can be honest, every now and then I have to pinch myself thinking back on it because I forget how amazingly lucky I was to experience that. I had a dealer who was literally like boutique bud before we knew what it was. Like I'd show up at his place and he would like pull out like a Tupperware container from underneath his couch. And then inside that Tupperware container were more Tupperware containers and it had different stuff in it. And he'd be like,
Yeah,
hey,
exactly.
I got some blueberry kush, or hey, do you want some Holland's Hope? Or hey, over here. And you're like, oh my God. And again, coming from literally
Wait,
like dirty cops to this dude who's like, let me open your eyes.
you know what? It's probably that played into my love of breeding, I think, as well as I think we were probably around similar age here of when that high quality weed really started coming out from Vancouver and BC, and I remember the exact same thing of like white rhinos and Agent Oranges and all these fucking super chronic strains that were getting released to market that were growing phenomenally, and that was like my first taste of boutique cannabis
Like
for sure, and it's exciting.
it's like when you mentioned here at the beginning White Widow. Like I remember getting White Widow in Vancouver and like the very first time it like the bud hit my hand, I remember like running over to the
Right?
light and being
Yeah.
like, "Oh my God, it's so white." It's
Right? It's something else.
wow. Right? Like I
Yeah,
remember it
yeah.
blowing like literally. And again, Mexican dirt, anything would blow your mind after that. But seriously, I have a very clear memory of running over to the window and this guy on the couch being like, it's not a big deal, and me being like, no, it is a big deal. Like, look at this, man. It's like the most beautiful thing
Totally.
I've ever seen in my
I
life.
remember paying $253 an ounce for that weed of like it paying a lot of money for this
Yeah.
weed too. It was like the prices were through the roof. I spent a lot of money on cannabis when I was in my early 20s. Yeah, it was wild because this is when it
Yeah.
just really started blowing up the industry and it's affected everything to this day. And I think a lot of those guys are still in the space, which is great. But yeah, it's just yeah, it's a bit of a different world now. And I can go on for days and days and that medical market, it bled into the legacy market, but in a very, bled into the rec market, sorry, but in a very negative way. And that's something that I find too. And that's why we do what we do as well as the government basically went and grabbed a few medical strains from the medical market in Canada and distributed them to the first licensed producers in Canada, and everyone was growing the same shit. And so you went from this medical market that was booming and wild and phenomenal and so many flavors to a legal market that had basically a bunch of renamed cultivars of maybe five or six different cuts and it just this is I think a huge issue. But again, it led me to this as well. But it stemmed from that really amazing weed coming out of BC, and it's to this day I can still just taste it and think of it, and just like you see those buds in my hands for the first time, and like, what the fuck is this? How is this even possible?
Yeah. Like I remember the first time I had blueberry kush and it like I was like, "Oh my God, this genuinely smells like berries." I was like, "How is this even freaking possible?" I was like, "Oh my God." Like I said, I have very clear memories of just being, opening that baggie and being like, "Oh my God, dude, where did you get this? It's so phenomenal." And, again, my dealer just being like, whatever, from the hippies over on Salt Spring Island. It's what they do,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like he was so blasé about it, and I was so mind blown about it. It was,
The
yeah,
good old days. Yeah.
yeah, good times though, right? Good times.
Right.
And I think,
100%.
I think, I think that's probably, like what you're saying, why we do kind of what we do in the sense that we've seen some really good stuff, and there's it ties back to good feelings and good times, and you just kind of
Mhm.
want to share that on some level, right? Like I just, yeah,
Totally. Yeah, I still get the odd person that has stigma around cannabis and says, "Oh, it all smells like weed," and that's where I'm like, challenge accepted. Like, it all smells like weed. Like, here you come to my farm, smell 100 different jars, and tell me it all just smells like weed. There are so many different flavor profiles and tastes, and the experience of cannabis is so much more than what the average person thinks it is. And I guess getting to experience that early on as well, just because I was in that world of having so many flavors long ago has really kind of, it's obviously I'm still passionate about it. So 20 plus years later, I'm still here like geeking out over weed. So it had an impact.
love it. I think the underlying theme here is the importance of having variety, right? Like it really
Wow.
is. It
It
really
is. It is
is.
important.
It is. I mean, I
Yeah.
talk about it all the time, but I guess I reference it more in the sense as, building tolerance, right? Like I have a rotation, but the reason I have a rotation is because I don't like to build tolerance to things. But also on some level, I can admit it, I like to try new things. Like I do.
Good.
I do get bored with things and I get, I don't want to be like I get fussy. That's not how I want to describe myself. But I do. I build a tolerance. It doesn't work the same. I don't get the same effects, and so I'm constantly looking for different flavors, different like things that just work better. Or again, I hate to say it,
Yeah.
tastes better.
You can relate it to music or shoes. I always go music or shoes. Music being you have your top 100, you have your songs that are hot for a while. You're always going to have a few of those songs that you play for the rest of your life and that are staples for you that you've built like a lot of emotion around, but you're always looking for that new hot track, that new hot song that makes you feel a certain way. But it doesn't last forever. And if the radio plays it out too much, it's you don't want to listen to it anymore. And if the LPs are all growing the same shit, well, you don't want to smoke it anymore. So it's like, it's very similar to music, and it's shoes. I go the Nike colorway of how you can have like a certain Jordan, but you have six, seven different colorways, and they're released at different times. People like that diversity, and I think myself included. I think I at any given time probably have at least 10 to 20 different flavors that I'm rotating through, and they all have a purpose and they all have a place, and they're all they all have a certain time that I'll consume them. But I that's kind of why I breed as well, as I like the flavor diversity, I guess. So yeah, that's it's a benefit of the job, perk of the job, I suppose.
No, I love it though because it's so true. Like I do pick flowers based on how I want to craft my day, so to speak, right? Like I need certain flowers to do certain things for me on certain days because I don't like to succumb to the bullshit of life.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like, like we were saying before we hit record there. I am married, but I am a single parent, basically. And it gets
Mhm.
overwhelming taking care of it, again, sports and school and homework and this and that. And did you do your laundry? And haven't you taken the garbage out? And why haven't you this? And blah, have you walked the dog? And and oh, sometimes you're just like, that bullshit is just I'm choking on it.
Yeah.
I'm drowning in it, right? And but then other days, you know, your kid's in the zone and they're like, "Oh, don't worry. I've this, I've that, I've done." And you're like, you're hitting stride. And so you don't need the same things that you needed the day before. And that's where that variety is so important.
It is, yeah, and I think like this industry too is for the first I guess year of medical and any new emerging market is we're probably getting a very slim pickings. You're getting very few selections. There's many, many, many of the same cultivar coming and being renamed all over the place. And that's one of the things that pushes me in Australia as well, is learning actually how much of our clients and our genetics. We've serviced 250 plus cultivators in Canada. I have 150 plus genetics in the market. But probably, the top 10 or 20 are the most produced. And I've seen them renamed Black Cherry Punch 10 times at least. There's so many different names of this cultivar. So the consumer's looking for that diversity, but not getting it. That's another issue. I don't deal with that because I'm breeding and I have, the true genetics on hand. But for us, the passion of bringing the consumers something new and unique and actually something that is true to type is very important for me. And that's definitely a major mission of ours. So as much as flavor is important and different variety, it's got to be truthful as well. Because I think there's a lot of genetic fraud going on in the industry. And this is something that I'm very much so against. So maybe we can build off of that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? With what's being renamed over here and what got renamed over there and who did this with what. And then like you're saying, you're one Black Cherry Punch. You've lost count on how many times it's been renamed, but you're like, nope, that's still Black Cherry Punch. You can call it whatever you want, but it's interesting, right? And I think that is some of the frustration like on my end, right? Like say I like black cherry punch. Now I'm looking for those genetics, but
Mhm.
now somebody's taken it, they've renamed it 10 different things, and I'm looking and I can't find what I want because it's not labeled the way I wanted it or the way it should be labeled. The way it should be labeled. It's not even how I want it to be labeled.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's how it should be labeled, right?
And
Like
backfilling is a whole nother thing where you find Black Cherry Punch jar and you go and buy it and it's another cultivar. And this is something that is prolific in the industry, prolific. And it's what drives me to breed and what drives me to bring exclusive genetics to market and exclusive flower to market is because this is, I started over 2 years ago, really understanding. We started tracking all of our sales from all of our clients, and we keep a massive database of information of who's growing what and where it's being sold and all these different things. You can start to see the same grower, I'm not throwing anyone under the bus, selling to 4 or 5 different brands, the same genetic. And we're selling all the plants, so I know exactly what they're growing. And it's just being sold to be sold because there's such a demand internationally. And it's like we're going to get to a point where we evolve and this becomes less of an issue. It's already getting better and better month by month, and in the market. But the first year or two, and especially in Canada, the first 4 years was awful. It was really, really bad. So again, all these different things are driving me to do what we do. And yeah,
On that, while staying brand neutral, without saying
sure,
any names, can
sure.
you share like how any maybe collaborations have influenced or inspired some of the genetics you're developing? Unless, of course,
Um,
there was somebody you worked with that you were like, they're phenomenal, and I want to give a shout out to. That's different.
Yeah, we early days, like a lot of our genetics have come from such a diversity of breeders. No one has started with heirloom genetic. Very rare is someone starting with a heirloom genetic that they went and picked out of a field and it's naturalized, and that's not been the case. We've hybridized cannabis for a very long time, and a lot of the breeders are growing other breeders' genetics. So we started with a diverse. Probably 100, 150 different breeders genetics, and we've really been playing with these different genetics. And so, yeah, I just it's a difficult question to answer. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that.
Has there
Maybe
been
reading.
anybody that you like kind of stumbled on?
We've
Has there been
we've
somebody that you?
we've worked with so many different breeders. We have the Sherbinski line in house. We've worked with Sea Junkie. We've worked with, all these different breeders out of the States. I've toured pretty much every major breeder in the States. We've met with all these different groups. We don't necessarily work with anyone per se beyond the base breeding stock that I started using years and years and years ago. I prefer Mother Labs genetics, to be honest. At the end of the day, what I find is a lot of the breeders that are in the space now are just out there to create seed. And there's a lot of seed producers that are creating untested seed and just and without throwing out any names, just basically producing as much as they possibly can to sell, where we've never sold a seed. So what we're doing is really picking specific cuts, specific phenotypes that we're commercializing. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think there's tons of amazing breeders out there. I would say one of my favorite, and I prolifically you can say, compounds out there, Sea Junk, all these big US names are all great. But I think, yeah, it's the closet breeders that I really prefer, the medical guys that are just, girls, women doing their thing in their house and really just been working on lines privately and don't have the hype. That's my favorite. So lots of little underground, growers are that's my go-to. I find the bigger breeders, it's all the same stuff. You end up getting this, the same terp profiles, the same morphology, the same.
I don't want to make an overgeneralization, but the guy that's breeding in the closet is doing that for love. Whereas the
Love.
guy
Yes.
who's doing it for seeds is doing it for money. And like I said, I don't want to say overgeneralization, that's how it is for everything, right? But
No, of course.
but straight up, the strawberries that you're growing in your garden are better than the strawberries that you're going to go get from the grocery store because your strawberries are here in your backyard and you grew those bad boys with love,
This
right?
is it, and I think like you're 100% right. Is that love element is important. I think also as it's a long game for us. It's not a short game when someone's growing for seed, and power to everyone. I'm not here to hate on any breeder anywhere really. At the end of the day, everyone's doing the market. There's market demand for everything, and if someone's selling seed, all the power to them. But the goal of someone selling seed is to have as many new varieties as possible and as much seed as possible. So they're just mass producing seed, mass producing, selling. And there's not a lot of testing going on, not a lot of commercialization. Like I said, we select about 1% of our genetics that we breed and test and pheno hunt. So that's we call majority of our products over 99%. So really we're finding the rare gems, the rarest gems, and we've invested a lot to be able to do that. And I can't say the same for most breeders that I've toured and met and hung out with and spent time with and around the world. This is pretty rare until I meet a passionate home grower or home breeder or someone that is just in it for the love of it.
Do you have any goals or projects you're working on this year that you're excited about?
Yes, what to say about them, I'm not sure. Yeah, our current facility in Saskatoon right now, we finished a big expansion there about 2 years ago, and this is a dedicated breeding facility. We've built a purpose-built breeding facility. We're now on the cultivation side a little bit more, getting these products to market because we've stopped selling our genetics or licensing our genetics as much as we used to in the past, and started now releasing our own flower products because I love growing flower as well. So we have cultivation that's coming up to be announced soon. We're also, we're working with a lot of brands. We're launching brands internationally, many different countries, most medical markets. But I can't really get into many specifics yet. But lots of growth and development, and yeah, just optimization of what's going on within Mother.
Okay, so I have a question for you, and we can
Okay.
absolutely cut this question, but I
Okay.
wouldn't be me if I didn't ask this question. Ready? Okay, here you go. I love the people at A&TG. I love those peeps. Love them a lot. Australian Natural Therapeutics Group.
Yeah.
Love them a lot. One of my favorite flowers, Miss Kim.
Yes.
Miss Kim is your genetics.
It
Miss
is. I've read it
Kim
myself.
from A&TG has been discontinued. Can I speculate for a moment that potentially that it has been discontinued from A&TG because potentially you're bringing Miss Kim to Australia? Can I scoop this or do I have to cut this? Tell me something good, Brian.
You can keep it because it's fine. I'm totally okay to talk about it. It is a finicky call. It has an amazing effect. You like Miss Kim because I like Miss Kim, and Miss Kim has a very uplifting, unique effect, and the terpinolene is next level, and it's just like it's a crazy cultivar. Not the easiest cultivar to grow. So this is something that we've actually furthered our breeding pros projects with Miss Kim to kind of take it to a better point. So cultivating it is not for everyone. So again, that's probably one of the earlier cultivars that we released that, if it's dialed in, it grows really well. If it's not, it might be a pain in the butt for a cultivator. So I think that's their choice to take it away. But every genetic I've ever bred or ever kept is sitting in my tissue culture lab, cryopreserved, ready to go. So we don't throw away anything. So there's a potential that Miss Kim may make, a spotlight back. But again, I have a list of genetics that are in Australia from other labs, and there's a whole lot of them, and we're starting to bring back some of the favorites that we've bred and really starting to go there. So maybe if there's enough excitement because of this podcast, we might have to make a decision to bring Miss Kim back, but this will be based off of the response we get. So you'll have
Oh, I love it, Brian, because that was 100% my own selfish question there. I was like, I had to, had we recorded this back in December, I wouldn't have I wouldn't have known that she had been discontinued. But I found out like last week basically, and I was like, I gotta ask now because that's one of my favorite flowers. And you would be the perfect person to ask if potentially
this is
she's
it.
coming back.
Yeah, we pulled it out of production probably about a year and a half ago now, which is this is the lag time that you see in the industry is that there's probably a year or two behind every move that I make. There's a result. We used to say we're breeding genetics for 2 or 3 years down the road, and we're seeing genetics that our market's not going to see for many. Skin was one that kind of slipped out because it was such a phenomenal cut, but not the easiest to cultivate. So that's one that I will own up to there and say that we got to do a little bit more work on it. But yeah, I'm a huge fan too. Yeah, it
Ah,
gets me going.
I love her. She's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
she's loud. She's beautiful. She's everything I want for a daytime.
I
Go get her.
agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
smells, tastes delicious. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
with you 100%.
yeah. I gotta tell you, I was a little reclamped when I found out it had been discontinued, and that's why I was like, "Oh, I'm talking to somebody soon that might be able to give me an inside
Don't
scoop."
cut this. You just shoot me an email. You know my email now. You might even have my phone number from my email. You shoot me a text if you want. Just be like, Brian, it's time. The people want it, and we'll see what we can do.
Oh, I like it. I might have to hold you up. I might. Who am I saying? I might. I will hold you up to that
You
later.
will. Okay, fair enough. It takes about 5 months to pull it out and get into production, so it takes a little bit of time. But you let me know. I'll wait for your word.
All right, good deal. It's
All
gonna
right.
be a very low key underground movement because that's what we're about.
And you can hang your hat on that and say that was me. I did that for Australia. So
Oh,
yeah,
like
we'll see. We'll see.
pat, my,
No promises.
pat myself on the back, be like, oh, took one for the team there. Took one for the team.
Podcast is about to blow up. Yeah, no, this is Miss Kim. Yeah, single-handedly.
Totally. Oh, Brian, it's been such a delight talking to you. I mean, you're very refreshing. I like it. I like the fact that you're on a hunt for something different. And that's, like I
Yeah.
said, that's refreshing. I feel like there's not enough of that in the industry.
No, I appreciate that, and it's just we've stayed focused, and I focus on what we're doing and what I prefer, and I think at the end of the day that's really all you can do, and yeah, we've just kept on moving forward. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so at the end, I know we've covered a lot of topics. We were kind of all over the place. But what is one nugget of information that you'd like to leave listeners with?
One nugget of information, I think you started off saying that you are aware of the breeding and the cultivars and the genetics that are going into the flower that you're consuming. I would say just become very aware of the cultivars you are consuming and become very aware of different profiles, terpene profiles. Lineage is important. These traits carry through multiple generations of breeding. For instance, the Miss Kim, if I breed with Miss Kim, I'm going to guarantee you it's strong terpinolene. It's going to come out very, very high, probably over 2%. So again, just follow certain genetics you like and lineages you like, and maybe just try to stick to those if you see them in the market. If you really have a love for certain smoke, this is maybe the way to go. And I think a lot of people dance around and really want that variety, but having a staple in the cabinet that is for that perfect the daytime smoke, or that certain use case is very important. And if you can't get that same cultivar, you can often find very similar effects by looking for similar lineages. So that's something for sure I would say is those traits don't disappear. They stay fairly strong and show through in majority of the output. So I'd say just be aware of what you're consuming.
I think that's excellent advice. It is, because that's how I pick my flowers too. I pay attention to those genetics and those lineages.
Very easy just to go with hype, and hype often does not lead to great effects. This is one thing too, is a great name or a great brand may come out with all the best, coolest hype sounding strains, and it could do nothing for you and have zero effect, and be the complete opposite need state. So again, just be aware and find a few of those staples, and I think that's it's going to help a lot of people, especially in the medical space. If you find something that works for you, just be aware of what's in the genetic and the lineage, and take it from there.
I love it, Brian. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It was a blast, sir.
Yeah, anytime. And Miss Kim, I'll be waiting.
100%. I'm gonna hold you to that.
I'm here. I'm here. It's out to the world now, so
It
there's no
is.
taking it back.
I'm gonna have
My
to have a
team's gonna
call.
hate me, but hey, yeah.
I'm gonna have a big call to action now. Gonna have to
That's
make
it. As soon as I get
stickers.
in tomorrow morning. Yeah.
And that's a wrap for the first episode of season 3. I hope you got as much out of this conversation with Brian as I did recording it. His insights into genetics, cultivation, and the industry as a whole has made for a fantastic start to the season, and there's plenty more where that came from. If you enjoyed this episode, don't just keep it to yourself. Hit the subscribe button, leave a 5-star review, and share it with a mate who needs to hear it. Every listen, every share, and every review helps keep these real, unfiltered conversations going. And hey, you heard it here first, AusCanna family. If you're a fan of Miss Kim, we're on a mission. So let's make some noise and drop a hashtag #SavingMissKim in the comments, and let's get the word out. Until we meet again, friends, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen. And remember, never waste your time wrestling with a pig. You both get dirty, and only the pig likes it.